Netflix and elevated horror walk into a bar. And dare I say, wow, it's quite good. I would have never guessed this show ends the way it does until the very last episode, which had me screaming. It's 8 episodes long, and once again, I feel like this is becoming a general common theme. It could have been an email, or like 4 episodes, or even a long movie. But a miniseries, you feel like it stretches itself very thin across 8 episodes. It's produced by the Duffer Brothers, the same people that ruined Stranger Things after making it cool. Don't break up with your wives if they write your material. And the show's premise is very simple. You follow the days leading up to a couple's wedding and very ominous, disturbing things happening all around them and several challenges that are going to put the relationship to the test. Netflix's show is asking you, viewer, if you're married, do you think you married your soulmate on your wedding day? Would you bet your life on it if you had to? And that is, of course, if you even believe in the idea of a soulmate, which is really at the core of this series. What is love? As explained to you in Portuguese. Amor é fogo que arde sem se ver. É ferida que dói e não se sente. É contentamento descontente. É dor que desatina sem doer. É não querer mais que bem querer. É solitário andar por entre a gente. É nunca contentar-se de contente. É cuidar que se ganha em se perder. Wow. I could sing fado. É meu e vosso este fado. Tlan, 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 tlan. Destino que nos amarra. Por mais que seja negado. Or, if you're part of a slightly different demographic, you could also see love as fire and rain. You can drive me insane, but I can't stay mad at you for anything. We're Venus and Mars. We're like different stars, but you're the harmony to every song I sing, and I wouldn't change a thing. Wow. Thank you. I'll be here every week. So we follow the couple-to-be, Rachel and Nikki. And as someone who also married a Nikki less than a year ago, I'd like to throw in my 2 cents. The show is good, guys, if you cut out the fluff, which seems to be a running topic. Episodes 1 and 2 are like setting up the nightmare ahead. Then episode 3 is like a bucket of cold water, and you're thrown into family therapy. It's like an unwanted intervention from the family that you only see once a year, really. Then the very interesting choice of doing the big reveal in episode 4, before the halfway point. And then you really separate the story into 2 portions, before 4 and after 4. Yes. And then episodes 5 through 7 are like family drama, days of our lives. Let's decide whether or not we want to get married, really, because that's the core question at the series' center. Is Rachel going to say I do or not at the altar? And then episode 8 is actually a quite spectacular conclusion to an otherwise long but enjoyable show. I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate because I actually like the show. Listen, they do make some very interesting points, and they do posit very interesting questions, and they explore a really fascinating topic that I'm actually very passionate about. I think the main issue for the show is it tries to be very conceptual in its horror, and we love conceptual horror. We love the exploration of darker themes through horror elements. But it turns into this sort of Groundhog Day where every episode, it feels like they're debating the same exact question over and over and over again, and they keep adding little bits of information and detail, but then they just rehash the same point over and over, and it's exhausting. So we're going to do a recap of the story because I know a lot of you are dying to know if something bad really happens, and if so, what it is. And trust me, it's a shocker. My jaw was on the floor, and this time I'm not being sarcastic or dirty. Like, I was genuinely, what the fuck? And after, I want to go through some of the main symbolisms that I picked up on, and then you are going to add the ones that I may have missed. Juntos, unidos, jamais seremos vencidos. Episode 1 starts with a bit of a flash forward. We're at the wedding. The bride is walking down the aisle. The groom is waiting for her. And as he puts the ring around her finger, her face changes. Her expression goes from excited to very concerned. Cuts to Trails of blood spread across the hallways. It's a bloodbath, and all we hear is people screaming in the background. And then we cut to 5 days until I do. Rachel and Nikki are driving to Nikki's parents' cabin in the woods where they're having their wedding. Rachel is very superstitious and believes that bad luck follows her around. Her mother died before she could meet her, and her father was a psycho who used to tell her that something really bad was going to happen to her on her wedding day. Rachel didn't want to get married, but after dating Nikki for 3 years and being presented with the question, a very loaded question that obviously pressures a lot of people into maybe saying yes when they don't want to say yes, she did say yes. She's expecting a small wedding because it's only immediate family. And a lot of things happen in episode 1 and 2 to make it seem like she's about to be a human sacrifice for Nikki's family. I'm not joking. By episode 2, I thought they are slapping us in the face with information to tell us that she's going to be human sacrifice for this family. Very heavy-handed, and you know it's a red herring because it happens literally in episode 2, and there's like 6 more episodes of this shit. So again, pacing is a bit of an issue. And Nikki idolizes his parents' relationship as like this ultimate sign of what true love means and what true love looks like. And I can relate to that. You know, I used to do the same. I used to revere my parents' marriage as like what a healthy relationship should look like. Spoiler alert, they're divorced. But Nikki still lives under the assumption that his parents' relationships are hiccup-free, and he's like in his early 30s. Nikki needs to grow up. And as soon as they get there, Rachel starts getting this really bad feeling. And it seems that Nikki believes her and is caring with her, and he respects all of her little rituals to ward off bad luck. One of them, because it's not explained, I'm just assuming it's a ritual that she does out of superstition. She needs to get inside a box full of holes and stay in there for an undetermined amount of time before she can have sex with Nikki. That's a new one. Anyone out there obsessed with like bad luck and good luck charms and stuff like that? Is that a thing? Do people really enter empty boxes before they can get pounded? Get boxed up before you get your box smashed. What? Okay, I need to stop. After a bunch of weird things happen on their way to Nikki's parents, she gets there and meets the family. And it's Jules, Nikki's older brother, and his wife, Nellie, who just so happens to be Nikki's ex-girlfriend, and Portia, Jules and Nikki's sister. And they all act very creepy, and it's all precisely done to unsettle you, the viewer, and put you in Rachel's shoes. So when you realize that everyone is actually really nice and they're just, you know, dealing with their own shit, you feel like you've been punked. And you have successfully, but not here on this channel. I lead with the truth. They're all really nice, actually. Like, within reason. Yeah. And Portia tells Rachel this legend of the sorry man, which is a story that came from Jules' disappearance when he was 8. So when Jules was 8, he disappeared into the woods, and he could hear a woman screaming all around him. And no matter where he ran to, it only got more and more intense until he finally came face to face with the sorry man. She describes it as this entity that's really ugly, but the gist of the thing is he was cutting his wife open, who was wearing a wedding dress, and crying repeatedly, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," as he did. And now legend says that he comes up from hell and stalks these woods, believing that his wife is inside a different bride. So a bride that bleeds near or around her wedding is summoning the sorry man to come and kill her. And she says all of this to an already freaked out Rachel who's just meeting her. Like, wow. Talk about what the fuck is up with my in-laws, huh? One thing I like about Rachel is that she's very open and honest with Nikki and tells him straight away that she has been feeling this bad feeling ever since they got there, and it's only getting more and more intense, and explains how everything is freaking her out. And Nikki once again seems to acquiesce and understand her and support her, but I know that those are just empty words because I've seen the rest of the show. I'm just telling you now so you don't start liking him. Nikki sucks. So in episode 2, a bunch of weird shit happens that really leave Rachel thinking that she's going to be a human sacrifice for this family. Namely, she finds her wedding dress around a stick figure hung up in the trees in the woods. That doesn't look like anything ominous, does it? She also finds Nikki's dad digging a grave in the middle of the woods. And Jules has a lethal injection hidden in his room and a bunch of satanic books. Jules' son Jude, this little brat, keeps telling Rachel that the sorry man is coming to turn her insides out. Okay. And Rachel also thinks that Nellie hates her because Nellie is Nikki's ex. Also, 100 people are coming to the wedding that she thought was going to be small because she thought immediate family meant like parents, siblings, a couple of grandparents, but no, They thought immediate family is bloodline, so they invited almost 100, not 100, like 90 something, which is so much better. But it all turns out to be a big fat misunderstanding. So the dress was the kid. He was trying to trick Death into not taking Rachel and taking the dress instead. He was trying to save her. And the grave was Boris digging it for Victoria, Nikki's mom, because Victoria is dying. She has a very aggressive form of brain cancer, and there's no more saving her, and she wants to go out on her own terms with a lethal injection. But they didn't tell Nikki because Nikki is a coddled little child that can't take hard truths, right? They shielded him. So when they announced they were getting married, Victoria, the narcissist that she is, decided to use their wedding as a surrogate living funeral where she gets to celebrate one last hurrah with the family before dying. She decided to make her favorite son's wedding all about herself. And the plan is for after the wedding, she takes a lethal injection and then she's buried in the woods. Okay, so Nikki now knows and his world is shattered because he doesn't understand why his mom would want to go out on her own terms. So that's when episode 3 kicks in and we do family therapy. Rachel tries making amends with the family after accusing them of wanting to sacrifice her, and in doing so realizes none of the family members is actually dealing in a healthy way with Victoria's decision to go out on her own terms. So she calls a family meeting and tells everyone to prepare some words. And if they can't deliver the words looking Victoria in the eye, then they're going to use the wedding dress around this stick figure. And then we're going to burn the dress so that all of the pain that we shared with the wood doll will evaporate. It's like a form of therapy because she's a behavioral psychologist who's doing her PhD right now. Rachel wants to help. And while the family prepares what they want to say to Victoria, she starts flirting with Nellie. What the fuck? It's not that I hate an unnecessary side plot, but this one truly was just why? They do family therapy and all is fine until Rachel in the middle of the night is kidnapped by a masked assailant. Luckily for her, Jules' son, caught the masked assailant's man's face on camera. It's man's face. And when he shows it to his father at the beginning of episode 4 in the middle of the night, because he heard Rachel get kidnapped, his father looks at it and recognizes the face as the sorry man. And then we go into the flashback of Rachel's parents' wedding. So, it was 1997. Alexandra was 8 months pregnant, and Jay was a happy-go-lucky guy who gets to marry the love of his life. Alexandra and Jay had a small wedding, much like what Rachel sounds like she wanted, and it was just them two and one witness. And Alexandra was as superstitious as Rachel, if not more. She also had paranoia, and we learn that Alexandra's mother used to tell her that she would die on her wedding day if she ever got married. Just more trauma. Like, marriage in this family is just death. And Jay reassures her several times, but then a witness asks Alexandra if she is sure he's the one, and that unsettles her. But she goes through with it anyway. She says, I do. Jay says, I do. They get married, and when they get back to their hotel room later that evening, after sundown, out of nowhere, Alexandra starts bleeding profusely from every orifice in her body, from her nose, then her eyes, then her ears, and then she bleeds out on the floor. And Jay, realizing his wife's about to die and she's 8 months pregnant, has no choice but to perform a C-section right then and there. And he cries, I'm sorry, as he has to cut into his now deceased wife. So the man that kidnapped Rachel from the house, it was a man, it was her father, Jay. He also believes that she's gonna die like Alexandra did. And then Jules barges in with a shotgun ready to save Rachel, thinking that she's in danger from a serial killer who literally kills brides. But no, they realize that the legend of the sorry man is actually Jay. So when Jules got lost when he was 8, he made his way into this cabin. And then when he heard someone come in, he hid under the bed and he witnessed Rachel's mother die. Yeah. Then Rachel's mom looked at him and asked for help and asked him to tell her it's real. And then asked again, are you sure he's the one? Because this is a question that Rachel gets asked repeatedly. Rachel recognizes the witness in the video. It was one of the weird happenstances that were happening in episode 1. And it was this creepy dude that she met in a dive bar. Well, met. He approached her. She stabbed him in the hand. And he asked her, are you sure he's the one? So she goes back to the dive bar to confront him. And he tells her all about the family curse that haunts her. Rachel has a curse. Her bloodline has a curse. And the curse is you have to marry your soulmate on your wedding day or you die. You bleed to death. Once upon a time, a bride and a groom were getting married. Unfortunately, the groom died before he could make it to the altar. The bride cried to Death and asked it to bring her groom back. And Death said, I will bring your groom back by sundown if you truly believe he is your soulmate. But no bargain with Death is that easy, and there's always a but. The but is that the bride and groom's bloodline was then cursed with the same task of finding their soulmate on their wedding day. This man, who we will call the witness, then explains that when it came down to his turn, he is one of the descendants of this bride and groom. He was to marry his beautiful, sweet Marianne. But on the day of his wedding, a mysterious man walked up to him and said, Are you sure she's the one? The witness got freaked out and chickened out and left his bride at the altar. And that means that the curse spread to her bloodline now. And the way the curse works is it's only like activated if you accept a wedding proposal. So like Rachel has the curse now, but if she had never said yes to Nikki's proposal, she would have been fine. So the curse spread to Marianne's bloodline, and eventually she met a man. And that man is Rachel's ancestor from many, many generations ago. And the witness, as punishment for leaving his bride at the altar and spreading the curse to her bloodline instead, has now been tasked with witnessing all of the weddings in Marianne's bloodline. Marianne is Rachel's ancestor, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. If she doesn't marry Nikki, the curse spreads to his entire bloodline. If she says yes, and she believes that he is her true soulmate, she will live. And if she says yes and doesn't believe it, she will bleed out at sundown. When they say spreads to the bloodline, I think that Rachel assumes that that just means that the future kids that Nikki has will have that curse. But that's not how it works. Episode 5 is Rachel gaslighting herself into believing that Nikki is really her soulmate. She really hangs on to the story of how they met. As I said, she's very superstitious and always has these bad feelings. And 3 years ago, she was supposed to get on a plane, but she had this really, really bad feeling all day, and she decided not to get on the plane. And there was this other passenger there who was also meant to get on the plane. And when he approached her, she just told him very honestly, I have a bad feeling and I don't want to get on that plane. And he decided not to get on the plane either and said, fuck it, let's drive. And they drove 4 days instead. Not 4 days like days on end, like 4 days, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was the longest first date ever. But as they closed the doors on that car and started their journey, he even looked to her with a cute smile and said, I think you just saved my life. No, the plane did not go down, so no, she did not save his life. But it was a very cute story. And she uses this as ultimate evidence that he sees her. And she's working the room and telling everyone this story. And she's fully confident this is what is going to keep her alive. And then Jules reveals the story didn't actually go that way. Nikki was not supposed to get on the same flight as Rachel. In fact, he was meant to take an earlier flight, but he had just been dumped by his girlfriend. And the flight was taking him to Jules's wedding. And he couldn't face the family after getting dumped, and he couldn't face life as a single man, so he just sat at the airport for hours and then saw Rachel all by herself and decided, oh, she's cute, let me see what she's doing. And then just drove with her because, according to Jules, Nikki chases stories more than he chases people. He saw this grand romantic gesture that he could do, and it would be a great story to tell people afterwards, and so that's what he did. But he lied. He had just been dumped, and then he immediately hopped into another relationship. And now Rachel is freaking out because the very foundation of this entire belief system and trust that she has in Nikki was built on lies. And Nikki's like, what does it matter how we met if everything after was so loving? Are you really gonna forego everything we've lived based on that? Yes! What do you mean? You psycho. Stay single for a little. It's not even the fact that he was not supposed to be on the same flight, although it is really fucking creepy. It's more so the fact that he had just left a relationship and he did not even tell her. So how quickly was he able to just, like, forget the girl that he was just dating? What does that say about you, Nikki? You know, many questions, but it all leads to Rachel drunkenly telling the entire family at dinner about the curse. So this serves as the recap of the show if you were not paying attention. And she tells them all the truth, and it's not her fault that most people don't believe her. Now, there's a few people that do believe her, and that's Jules, and his wife knows because they are so honest with each other. They just have no reason to lie, and she's also really cool, and she's British. I say that like it's a positive, like they're not all the same. One day until I do, and Rachel is now hell-bent on finding an alternative way of keeping herself alive. First, she breaks into the county clerk's office to check some records of her family members, everyone who died, to see if the curse really is real, like to try and find someone who may have survived it. And she does find a bunch of people who died, who got married and then died. She builds a family tree with all the evidence, and I was looking at that thinking, this is what you should be showing your fiance, because I don't think he believes you. Like, this is where he needs to be, but no, it's Nellie, the future sister-in-law that already believes in you. But she does find one woman that got married and lived for 57 years. But because she's dead, they can't speak to her and ask her how to stay alive. So they decide to do a seance, a Ouija board session. Portia loves planning things, and she was looking for a fun game to play in her bachelorette party, and that's what we do. Ouija games. So they try and contact this dead great-great-aunt, and something really funny happens. Rachel's hair is lifted by a mysterious unseen force, then the lights go out, and someone punches Portia and breaks her nose. And I don't think people are sufficiently freaked the fuck out over Portia getting her nose smashed by an unknown invisible force. But then somehow Rachel and Nellie end up alone in a room, and they start making out because of course they are. And then they're interrupted by a possessed Portia, possessed by her great-great-aunt, who tells Rachel the secret to staying alive. And it's a variation of the famously known something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, reworked as something living, something dead, something stolen, something red. And while all this was happening, Nikki's world just got obliterated. First, he's told by Jules that he is a coddled child who can't take the truth. Then he finds out from his father that his mother cheated on him 30 years ago, and to stop seeing their marriage as a perfect union when it's clearly not. And what does he do with this hard truth? He freaks the fuck out and confronts his mother like a psycho,
I don't give a shit about Bo. Why didn't you tell me?
Because it's none of your fucking business. But he keeps going like a little baby, proving his brother's point completely from hours ago, and then she falls into a coma. So episode 7 is like 1 hour till I do, and the whole family is around Victoria because she's still not conscious. Her son Jules is a doctor, and he's monitoring the situation, but he said this has been happening more and more. She needs a hospital, even though she doesn't want one. Portia is neurotic and wants to cancel the entire wedding, even though everyone is literally knocking at the door. And Rachel wants to make sure that she survives. So she's gonna do the potion, the something living, something dead, something stolen, something red. Something stolen from the mother-in-law. She cuts a bit of her hair and then has an excruciatingly long conversation where she tries to convince Boris, the husband, not to kill his wife before the wedding starts in 40 minutes. He's literally like, every time this happens, less and less of my wife comes back. I will not allow her to go out this way. I'm gonna do it now. And she's literally like, can you not wait just 44 minutes? She might wake up by then. But no, it's really uncomfortable. The episode has a lot of cool, long one-shot sequences, and the next one is her getting something dead from the bride. She has to cut something, so she decides to cut the pinky toe because it's hidden away, and that will ruin your balance. You really do need 5 toes for maximum balance. So if you're gonna cut something off that you're not going to miss that much, go with something else. But she has Jules remove it surgically with all of the, all of the nice products and drugs. And then she limps her way to her groom's room. She sees a lucky penny that he put there outside on the floor. And she's like, oh, he thought of me. And then she goes inside and they have just sex. But one shot, the entire thing. It was uncomfortably long. And I'm not one to complain about using sex as a plot device or even having sex on screen. When it's needed, it's needed. And even sometimes when it's not needed, it's fun and nice and whatever. But this was just uncomfortable. They go for realism here. And it feels like you're literally how many inches is that? I don't know how it looks like you're this close to them just fucking for 3 minutes non-stop. And it's whew, I was looking at the watch damn, this is a lot. And she does this because she needs to get something living from the groom. And the something living is jizz. Come to me. And lastly, something red needs to come from an adversary. And isn't it convenient that, all of the wedding guests are arriving, and among them is the witness, the guy tasked with witnessing all of them. And she smashes a glass in his hand to collect some of his blood. Then she makes the potion and she looks at the potion, the thing meant to turn him into her soulmate if he's not already saving her life, and looks at the left, the penny that Nikki put outside of his room because it's good luck. Even though he doesn't believe in those things, he did it because he loves Rachel. He believes in her. He believes in the curse and he believes in the bad feelings that she's been getting. And last minute, she makes her choice. Episode 8 is the unraveling of that choice. They say their vows, and Rachel's are all about him believing her superstitions, him seeing her for who she is, him loving her for who she is, and how she has searched for certainty her entire life, but with him has realized that certainty doesn't exist. The only certainty is death. So in this moment, she is choosing to take this leap of faith. She is choosing to put everything aside and choosing Nikki. She fully embraces him and says, I do. Didn't even drink the potion. She's fully committed. And according to the creator in an interview, that once again, I think we need to stop saying too much. Let some viewers interpret. But yes, if he had said yes, she would have survived. And what does Nikki do? Nikki chooses this moment to finally listen to Rachel and do what she's asked him this entire time since the beginning of their relationship, to not get married. Finding out that his mommy cheated on his daddy, okay, shattered his worldview and put his own relationship into question. And he's decided that marriage is a poison, and it almost poisoned them before they even got married because this week has been so crazy. So he's deciding to stand by her and not marry her. And she starts freaking out. She's like, Nikki, what the fuck are you doing? This is not the moment.
Marry me. You have to marry me right now.
And he's like, no, you don't understand. I'm doing this for you because I know better. So then the rest of the episode feels like a fever dream because this is what I was waiting for. This is the something bad is going to happen, okay? Oh, y'all wanted a twist, eh?
Why are you doing this now?
There's no twist. What the man said would happen, happens. First, they go and they argue. And it's a very interesting argument because it really exposes them and their issues, and it finally highlights why their relationship was doomed to fail from the start. They go back and forth for a bit, but the gist of the thing is he accuses her of being too difficult to love, that she has too many superstitions, she always needs to be reassured, and she's always so paranoid, and it's really difficult and exhausting for him. And she says, I know, which is why it meant that much more when he believed her that very first time that they met, which is why she put so much belief in him from the get-go. Finally, someone who looked at her and said, I believe you. And it all ties in with Jules telling him that he goes after stories and not after people, because ultimately Nikki doesn't necessarily love Rachel. He loves the idea of what Rachel brings into his life, the idea of a relationship, a marriage, potentially kids, because we find out that Rachel told him from the very beginning that she didn't want to get married, and he asked anyway. So he didn't respect her wishes. But they argue back and forth, and it all boils down to he doesn't believe her about the curse. He says the curse is not reason enough to marry someone. Bro, she's literally gonna fucking die. What do you mean it's not good enough? Like, it's literally life or death. Like, you're gonna get the curse if you don't marry her. What is not clicking? What's not clicking is that Nikki's a dumbass who ultimately just doesn't believe her. He says, well, it's just what I believe in, and I can't change my belief system for you. And she says, yeah, Nikki, I also don't believe in aliens, but if you told me without shadow of a doubt that you saw an alien, I would fucking believe you. At this point, Nikki's entire family is in the room trying to convince him to go through with the wedding, and then his mom coddles him, comforts him, and tells him, don't be embarrassed. No one is mad. Let's just go outside and finish this, okay? Everything's gonna be okay. And he says, okay. And then he looks at Rachel and says, okay, I'm ready. Let's get married. Do you wanna go through with this? And she looks at him, no. Good for her. I wouldn't either. Ugh. Oh my God, immediate ick. This is what proves to her that he doesn't really love her. He loves the idea of her. And it's only when mommy gives permission that he decides, okay, let's get through with it. What a gross man, baby. Boo, tomato, tomato. But she's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And by this point, it is sundown. It's run its course. And we've seen Death a few times with a fisheye POV stalking the rooms. It's so stupid. But yeah, Death is now stalking the whole room of guests because guess what? It's not just Nikki's kids that are going to get the curse. It's everyone alive that is part of his bloodline that will get the curse. And it goes into effect with posterity. So like if you're married and you didn't marry your soulmate on your wedding day, then you're gonna die. You're gonna die. And here's where I ask the audience, married members out there, if you had to bet your life on whether or not you married your soulmate on your wedding day, do you think you'd live? Yeah. Everyone in this wedding party starts dying. It's bad and it's really funny, and I wish they had leaned into the comedy of it, because there are a lot of moments that they could have easily turned this into a dark comedy, and perchance that would have been a more successful delivery of this story. Like, camp it up a little bit and lean a bit more into the absurd. But no, it's played like dead ass.
Why did you fucking tell me this would happen?
I told you it was spread to his bloodline.
Everyone who's married presumably dies. We did meet a few of the couples before, and the witness was asking them, like, do you believe you married your soulmate? And they were all answering yes. And now they're all bleeding. So, lie to yourself, but you can't lie to death. And everyone is bleeding except a few people. Nikki's father isn't bleeding because he believes that he married his soulmate, Victoria, even though she cheated on him, because love isn't perfect, and a relationship that works isn't always a relationship that is destined to work on paper. Victoria, however, is bleeding because she doesn't believe that Boris is her soulmate. Tragic. Jules isn't bleeding either, even though he's currently getting a divorce from Nellie. He truly believes that she is his soulmate. They are so honest with each other that it seems like they hate each other. But no, that's just friendly banter.
Baby, sometimes I fantasize about hiring someone to kill you.
Friendly banter, innit? I like a good bird with some banter in it.
So even in your fantasies, you don't do anything yourself?
I think he's got a really nice chat. It's not about finding your perfect match. It's about finding a match that works perfectly. And the last person not bleeding is Nikki, the recipient of the curse now. Oh, and Jude, the kid. But Jude is not going to bleed because he's, not married. And Nellie isn't bleeding either because she's not part of Nikki's bloodline. She is the in-law. In-laws are safe with this family. Portia's also bleeding because she got married as a joke in Las Vegas after being stood up at the altar. Gays making a mockery of marriage in it. And here's the fucked up part. In a bid to try and save Portia and Victoria and his side of the family, they ambush Rachel to officiate the wedding, even though it's past sundown. Jules convinces Nikki that this is going to work, or it could work. It's the last thing they can try. And Rachel is so caught off guard, she barely has time to react before the wedding license is officiated and done and signed and completed, because she said, I do. And Nikki turns into a little bitch now. He's like barely able to look her in the eye, and he's like, we had to try. And she realizes the whole family willingly sacrificed her on the off chance that it could save everyone else.
Getting married is only gonna kill us.
Not if we're soulmates.
We're not.
I still think you're mine.
Because after their entire argument, Rachel no longer sees him as her soulmate. Like, she sees him as a little bitch, but she's already said, I do. So now that she doesn't believe he's her soulmate and she's getting married, she starts bleeding to death. And she walks outside and she dies in this beautiful inner outdoor garden. Rich people, you make me sick. Piss me off. What the fuck? Who the fuck needs an outdoor garden indoors? Hey! Guess who doesn't stop bleeding? Portia or Victoria, both dead, exactly. Everyone else also dying. Rachel bleeds to death in the indoor garden, and Nikki hugs a little plushie like a little bitch. And if you're wondering why Nikki didn't bleed, well, silly. That's because in that moment, Nikki believed that she was his soulmate, as explained by the creator. And here's the thing about Rachel. She dies because when she officially becomes married, she no longer believes that he is her soulmate, right? But she did not get married before sundown, so she did spread the curse to Nikki's family. So now she has to become the new witness. So death comes for the witness. He's finally laid to rest, the man who regrets not marrying his sweet Marianne in the 1800s. Yep, he's immortal. And Rachel is brought back to life. She is now the new witness, and she has a whole different personality with her. She goes looking for her lighter, and Nikki is hugging a plushie like a little bitch. And he sees her. He can barely react. He can't even speak because he saw her dead. And she just asks for her lighter. He doesn't respond, and she just walks out annoyed. She gets in the car, lights up a spliff, I'm guessing, now with a witness outfit, and she drives off to perform her duty. It was a fitting ending that, because there isn't much lore established on how this curse actually works, on who gets to carry the punishment as the witness or not, there is enough leeway that they can make this happen. You know, she goes through both stages, both the death and the rebirth, which is something the creator said she wanted her to go through, because ultimately this TV show is about a breakup. And, you know, it's not the best work of horror when it comes to framing a breakup in conceptual horror. I think if you're looking for something better than that, you can go to Midsommar, which is a movie. They had the decency to keep it down to a film. There's even the director's cut, which is like half an hour longer and it has a bunch of extra content. It's such a good movie. Honestly, guys, do yourselves a favor. Go watch Midsommar. Another performance that should have been nominated for the Oscars. But I do want to talk about a lot of the symbolisms that they throw in episode 1 and 2 and then spread throughout, because I like some of the tie-ins in messaging and also themes. Not everything works, but some things work. There was a podcast episode in episode 1. It's about a story that Nikki tells Rachel, a story that freaks her out on the way to the wedding. And it's about the founder of the company Coldy's, which was a frozen custard company. And he was this man who was convicted in the 90s of murdering women. And one of his victims escaped. And there's a podcast where she retells how she survived. And they listened to one of the episodes where she describes being 8 months pregnant when she was kidnapped by this man. His name is Jerry, I think, Jerry Poole. And she noticed a tiny pink shoe in the back of his van and picked it up and thought he must have a daughter, or hopefully he has a daughter. So she even said how she was expecting a girl. And that did a whole bunch of nothing, because then Jerry stopped at a rest stop and slit her throat. She escapes the car and then she walks holding her throat together, and she describes a feeling of euphoria as you lose blood, which is something that she didn't expect, before the feeling of slowly dying away. This woman survived, but by episode 4, when we get the flashback of Alexandra and Jay and their wedding, we notice that Alexandra is 8 months pregnant, much like in the story. And the story was narrated by the same actress that plays her mom. And in the 1997 footage, we see that Alexandra and Jay actually stop at the original Coldy's and they speak to the Jerry, the Jerry. And Alexandra really quickly gets a bad feeling and asks her fiance to drive away. And he doesn't necessarily believe her, kind of dismisses her as being paranoid. But then we find out that he was actually convicted of murdering women. So like her intuition is validated in a way by that story. And it's all a bunch of misdirects, bait and switch tactics to confuse the viewer and make you think, wait, was it her mom that died? Was that story told by someone who survived? And that story also ties into this idea of hereditary, inheriting things from our parents. In one conversation, Rachel mentions how she doesn't want to have kids because she doesn't want haunted kids, and says that kids come out haunted, which ties into another conversation she has with Victoria in episode 3, I think, where Victoria explains how even though Rachel never met her mom, what's left of her mom is Rachel. It's the idea that our children carry our genetics, but also our traumas. And I think have been studies that show that like environmental stress and trauma literally affect your genetic pool. Talk about privilege the moment your parents are fucking. That's insane. And this idea of connectivity and inheriting things shows not only in the way that Rachel has the same intuition and superstition as Alexandra, but also the way Alexandra explains having a dream where she is her daughter fully grown on her wedding day. So they are, in a way, psychically connected, like past, present, existing at the same time. It's almost like it was Death's grand design, and now we're in Final Destination territory. In a way, it's also generational trauma, and Rachel is just unfortunate enough that most of her ancestors were killed off, wiped out by this curse, and the only person around to tell her about it is a crazy man who had to cut his wife open hours after their wedding to rescue his daughter. Like, the man is fucked up. It's also about breaking the cycle of violence, or in this case, breaking the cycle of not having enough fucking information before you can say yes or no to a wedding proposal. The witness has decided to start having fun, and he shows up at people's weddings and then asks them hours before, are you sure he's the one or she's the one? And that obviously doesn't help, and it makes people second guess themselves. But we could also make the case of, if a stranger asking you that question an hour before your wedding is enough to shake you that much and make you second guess if they're your soulmate, then you should not be getting married in the first place, because then you're not getting married for love. You don't really believe in your relationship. So his tactic is viewed by her as bad, But honestly, it's probably one of the most honest ones. It's probably the easiest way for you to really understand whether or not that person is your soulmate. As the new witness, Rachel chooses to break that cycle, and before leaving, she looks Jude in the eye, the little kid, and is like, don't ever let anyone tell you this did not happen. Remember it and be very, very, very careful who you choose to marry. And I'll see you then. Because now she's forced to observe all of the weddings and all of that family. And considering that most of them were wiped out, we'll see how she fares, I guess. There's also 3 foxes populating the story that represent Rachel's life at different stages. The first one, she sees a dead fox and her stillborns in a public bathroom. The stomach of the fox seemingly cut open, much like her mom's stomach had to be cut open to save her life. So, you know, that dead fox is her birth. Then there's a fox that gets its leg stuck in a trap that Nikki set up, and the fox chews its leg off to escape the trap. And then by the end, we see the fox again, this time running around free. So the fox in a way represents Rachel, who got caught in the trap and then had to do the unthinkable to chew her way out of the situation. Boris, the father, does taxidermy to the family dogs, and I'm sure the dogs must mean something. I don't know what it is. I mean, they stand guard of the family portrait that she is added to later. And Nikki has been told in the past not to look dogs in the eye after they're dead because it's disrespectful. And I guess I see dogs as also like witnesses to a family's history. And much like the witness man never dies, he's immortal, the dogs are also immortalized in taxidermy. And either the choice to have the character do taxidermy or hiring this specific actor to play this character, I think was a nod to Silence of the Lambs, because this is the guy who played Buffalo Bill. Yep, talking about skinning people and animals. Okay. One thing that really pissed me off, though, was the witness, and I'm going to explain why. Listen, the witness is an older, creepy man, but I want to focus on the older, because this man is from the 1800s. And he looks like this, right? So the assumption is that he stopped aging when he left his bride at the altar. And also in the footage of her parents' wedding, Rachel sees that he looks exactly the same. So like, he doesn't age and he stopped aging at this age, but how did he get to this age in the 1800s? Wasn't life expectancy like much shorter than it is today? But not even that. Did this man at this big age in the 1800s really go, okay, now I want to get married? How does that work? Like, I don't know that it's, I think they wanted to hire an actor that would look creepy, like an older, creepy figure to haunt her. I just don't think it makes sense, logically speaking, with the lore that the show has set up, kind of. In episode 6, she's looking at the ceiling and she notices the outline of a toe, which is foreshadowing the moment where she has her toe cut off her body to assure that her fiance is her soulmate. Begging the question, would you mangle your own body for your partner? Yeah. Well, if you wouldn't, then you don't love them enough. Something very bad is going to happen, and it did happen, and next time, just marry the girl, man. Like, where else are you going to find someone like this? Where else? And I think that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to leave it a like down below. Also, subscribe down below if you haven't already, because it's free and it helps, and it makes you honestly smell nicer. I don't know what to tell you. It's scientifically been proven. You're subscribed to this channel, you smell nicer than the average person. Don't make the rules. Sorry. And until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay stupid, and stay stuttering. Bye, guys.